Good Friday morning or afternoon or evening, whenever you might happen to join. For those that I may not know, I'm Reverend Jennifer Finley, our Momentum and Discipleship Pastor at First United Methodist Church here in Kirksville, Missouri. And you may notice I'm not Pastor Lori, who usually joins you on Fridays. We swapped days this week, so those of you who join regularly will have heard her on Wednesday. And today I am joining you from my home. It's been a while since I've done that. But though it's a Friday and not a Wednesday, this is still our time to take a deep breath together, to wonder about where God is working in our world and our lives. And my cat Ozzy hasn't made an appearance in one of these for a long time, so he apparently thinks he needs to today. So if you see a tail, that's why. This is our time to take a deep breath, to wonder about where God is meeting us. And throughout this summer, I've been calling this the season of green, for it is a time in our church calendar where our paraments, our banners are green in a way that represents growth. It's been a time often in the summer season where people have a little bit more breathing room, and there's sometimes for vacation and times for growth and relaxing and resting. Not for everybody, but for some folks. So we've been traveling together in this season of green and wondering together about what spiritual practices, what ways that we help ourselves encounter God, how God shows up in that time. And while it is still that season, the seasons are changing. Now, if you are at all affected by school year rhythms, whether you're affected by our college schedules here in Kirksville, or you have kids getting ready to go back to school, or you're an educator, or whether or not that is true for you, there's a season of change in the air. We can sometimes feel it as we move from July into August. And I've been thinking about that because you sort of just feel that season of change. Now, some of us respond to that season of change differently. I've had several conversations this week, and myself included, where I've responded to that sense of unsettledness that comes with a season of change by cleaning out closets. That's why I'm taking a risk today and showing you a little bit of one of my not so organized closets. This is sometimes a season where I start to get antsy and want to clean something and organize something. So last weekend, I sat down and I organized a hall closet that has all my winter coats and winter hats and all of those things, and all my shopping bags, the things you just kind of throw into a hall closet and don't think about them. I don't think I had organized that closet for at least 3 years, maybe longer. And so I took some time and I sat down on the floor like I'm doing now, and I pulled all the things out, and as some of us do, and I got rid of the things I didn't need. I found some interesting things in some bags I had forgotten about. Didn't find $1 million, found a few quarters. Organize my winter hats and gloves and scarves so they'd be there when the winter comes. Maybe that's a Northeast Missouri thing, as we prepare for hunkering down in the winter. And then I moved on. Then I moved on to an area right by my back door where I come in and out every day. And I realized that hanging on some hooks right by that door were still a couple of masks. That's where I had put all of my masks that I wore during COVID times, so it would be easy to grab. And I still had a couple just hanging out there, and they were a couple of special ones. They were ones that a beautiful one of our faith community folk early on in COVID, it's probably April, May-ish of 2020, when everything was still very isolated and shut down, had dropped off just on the door handle of the church building a bag with some homemade masks, and this was before we were really there, like this was early on, with a really wonderful note that said, I don't know if you're masking when you go out, but I wanted our church staff to be protected. And of course, as we learned more about what that journey of those last several years meant, I didn't wear these as often. I moved on to other masks, but they were still sitting by my door. And I thought, I don't really need those there anymore. I want to keep them. And so I packed them away in my bag of masks. And as I did so, I found a few others around the house and I put them in there as well. And that all sounds completely routine, except that I found myself taken up short as I did so. I had one of those moments of, oh wow, we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. The simple act of taking these and putting them in a bag to save had that moment of, oh wow, we've been through a lot. And then I moved on to some upstairs closets that had clothing. And as many of you, I think, do, I cleaned out and rearranged and made a pile to get rid of things that either no longer fit or I no longer wear or I don't need. And I ran across a couple of pieces of clothing that I hadn't worn for a while, and they're still good. I could put them on and wear them. One of them was something that I wore fairly frequently as we engaged in online worship together in those early days of COVID. And again, it was just a momentary moment, but it took me up short and I had to sit down and pause. And I thought, wow, we've really, truly been through a lot together, individually and collectively. And I probably would have let those moments be what they were and pass if it wasn't for the fact that God met me there, and then God met me in conversations later. Because later that same week, this was last week, I had a couple of other conversations where a friend said, oh yeah, I hit that moment a couple of weeks ago when I realized all my masks were by a door and I put them away. And I had that moment of, oh wow, right? And then I had another conversation where somebody shared that exact same experience of sorting through closets and realizing that there were reminders of where we've been, not just with COVID, but all of the things that have swirled in our lives individually, our individual lives and our larger collective life. And it got me to thinking that God often meets us in that power of simply saying yes. Yes, we've been through a lot of hard together. And some of our hard has been related to the things in our world, to our pandemic these last few years. Some of it hasn't been. Some of it's been unique, individual things within our own lives that have been caught up in all of that and maybe continuing. You see, in a season of green, of growth, of change, it's also okay to stop and acknowledge what has been. I feel like God has met me in that in these last few days, as well as I do what I often lovingly refer to as pre-semester nesting, my own version of getting ready for a new semester, of having college students back and rhythms changing. But all of that made me think of a poem that has been a part of my life for a while. You may have heard it. It's called The Guest House. It's often attributed to the 13th century mystic poet Rumi, although some translators over the years have put that together. Rumi was an Islamic mystic, has some deep writings, and this one has come back to me, and I wanted to share it with you. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if there are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. There's a lot there, and it's a tall order that most of us don't realize to meet each thing that comes into our house, into our hearts and our souls and our minds with laughter. But I wonder if it's okay in these days, even as we're moving through beautiful seasons of growth and change, to acknowledge when those moments overtake us, when those moments catch us off guard, when we say, oh wow, yeah, we really have been through a lot. I think that is part of being human, and it is part of being human together. We do those in our individual moments, but for me, God didn't just meet me in that individual moment. In fact, it was really more powerful when it was a shared moment, when those conversations happened and someone said, oh yeah, me too. I had that moment and I had that moment. Oh yeah, I had something similar happen. So friends, whatever that is looking like for you right now, whether it's cleaning out closets or putting things away or putting your house in order for a new season, whatever it is, know that God meets us there. God meets us in the joy and in the challenge. And God meets us when we share those together. Know that you are not alone, friends. Go in peace. Amen.